the Labor Department just got through releasing new statistics on the self-employed. There's a couple of issues with that. They added a category for incorporated self-employed people. And first off, the first issue is that they haven't had this category all along. That's kind of bizarre when they're reporting, the number of people that are actually working. And so, you've got people like the Freelancers Union lobbying. I don't think they're going to take all the credit, but you've got a lot of people lobbying that, hey, you need a category. I think it's more about making sure we collect taxes and all of that, and that we can report job growth and so forth. But I think the country is starting to look at things in terms of work instead of just jobs. And so the Labor Department just got through this last month adding a category for incorporated self-employed people, raising the number of reported people from 9 million to 14 million. Now, that's still a really low number. I just messed up my hair, so I'm going to do a Steve and put it back down. That's still a really low number. Only 14 million are self-employed. Come on, that's insane. When you look closely, though, the issue is that they're only measuring incorporated self-employed. I don't even think they're measuring people with LLCs because the IRS looks at that as tax, as a pass-through entity. So, and the problem is the LLC by far, for the majority of independent freelancers and so forth, is the best way to go if you're gonna run your own business. An S corp is pretty good. There's starting to be some really good, strong advantages that make me want to think about switching to an S corp. But what and they weren't clear. I don't know if they're measuring C corps, S corps, or what they're doing. But their number's really low, and it doesn't really account for enough. And I don't think that's accurate to just measure incorporated people. But at least we're starting to see that trend now, that people are saying, look, let's measure this. And the implication is that there's some benefit, that not only is there legitimacy, more legitimacy being morally implied by being self-employed, but that now we've got sort of statistical legitimacy. And the suggestion, too, is that there are some benefits to sort of making your status official. Even if you only work 20 hours, they didn't look at how many hours you worked, and I thought that was revolutionary. They didn't say full-time self-employed people. They didn't say, what does that mean? Because if you're self-employed, what constitutes your work? Doing your accounting, doing your marketing, doing the actual sort of hands-on, what part is the work? So they didn't divide it up by the number of hours. They looked for some other status, and the status of legitimacy they gave was just, have you created an entity, a business entity distinct from yourself? And I think that's a revolutionary change, and it has a lot of implications for what we do at Free Agent Source.
Well, when I started working with you, I probably wouldn't have considered this as really relevant. In a sense, I was more probably like the Department of Labor. I was looking at it from more of a academic perspective. And you talked about one of the themes at Rules of Work, I think, is a lot about the cultural implications of being a solo entrepreneur, all the pressure to be an employee, all the rigid infrastructure. So over on Rules of Work, I love this theme about what you have to say, and that's all the cultural issues surrounding the employment relationship and the inherent bias in our culture that's pressures us to be employees. And if you'd asked me a few years ago about what you were just talking about, which is making this status as an independent contractor or a solo entrepreneur, trying to legitimize that in society, I wouldn't have given it much weight. But as I've worked with you and grown to know you and started noticing these issues in my life that you pointed out, I think that's huge, and I think it's a real important trend that not only are we trying to sort out the basics that we need, being able to operate as an entity, being able to get our own retirement plan and health care, et cetera, but it's also the cultural thing. For example, banks, and lenders, auto loans, it's incredibly biased in favor of being an employee, and it's just purely on the assumption that if you're a W-2 employee, you're somehow safer, and if you're not a W-2 employee, you're somehow riskier, when the reality is it's about our spending and saving habits that makes us risky as borrowers, or not the fact that we're contractors or not.
You know, I think that same point, the Freelancers Union has been arguing heavily that we have a problem, and that the new sort of health care, or if you're not a fan, you can call it Obamacare. I really don't care. But the new health care plan, it takes care of low-income employed people, but does not contain, you know, the same sort of provisions for low-income self-employed people. Because those people haven't been measured in the same way. And so they're sort of looking at this as a way of, all right, so you're basically now acknowledging that these people exist, and once they exist, they officially exist on paper, and they exist not as employed people but as working people, and we can compare working people to working people. Especially since a lot of people are doing part-time self-employment, part-time freelancing, or are working in multiple jobs like contract positions instead of traditional 40 hours a week employment for a single employer. And even if they're employees, they're working more like they're freelancing themselves out, or being free agents, as we would say at Free Agent Source. Because of that, the next level of advocacy is, well, you know, we need to think about healthcare for these people too, because they're contributing to the economy. And the difficulty is expecting people to contribute to the economy who don't have access to basic services. And so that would imply that, yet again, the next layer is, should people that are self-employed be able to, or solopreneurs or whatever it is, or are freelancing themselves out to multiple, as contractors to multiple employment offers, should these people be able to own a home? Should we have access to health care? Should we be able to get good retirement plans? Should we have the kinds of tax breaks that, you know, we give to the super wealthy? What should be the entitlements is the wrong word. What should be the ordinary expectations of this sector of the population? And the first step is you have to say, well, yeah, there actually is such a population, and they're significant.
Right.
They contribute, and they're valuable. They contribute in a way that sustains the economy.